Xbox has a lot of momentum heading into 2021. As we enter the backside of 2020, that could only be described as a modern day tragedy. If you're a Shakespeare fan, it's also hilarious. Anyways, we are in the backside of 2020, which means the year is coming to an end. And earlier this year, Microsoft talked about, hey, a bunch of people are playing Xbox. They're logging into Xbox Live, they're streaming games, they're doing all sorts of fun stuff. And we didn't really have a lot of numbers or conceptual ways to put that into, like, I don't know, facts and figures. Well, today, Microsoft is releasing my favorite things, facts and figures, that we can kind of dive into that break apart the nut that is Xbox and to show how the platform has continued to grow during the latter half of the life cycle, because I think it's fair to say we are in the twilight years of the Xbox One generation, and the generation very much got off to a rough start. You had the TV thing, which we all know about. We also had the Kinect launching with it, which was an exceptionally an additional, I should say, $100, which really inflated the price. And Xbox One started the generation a little rough. Yes, they did initially sell out, but that's typical with every single console. So today, Aaron Greenberg penned a post and published it out, and we're going to talk about it here because it highlights how the momentum has dramatically shifted for Microsoft. So in his post, he says, to date, Microsoft Xbox Game Studios have launched 15 titles in 2020, 10 of which are brand new titles, a record for Xbox, and more importantly, many more to come. And we know what most of those are. We have like Avowed, we have a new Forza, there's a Fable, there's Halo Infinite, and many more that are coming. But as Microsoft wraps up this generation, they kicked out 15 titles just this year alone. And they're saying gamers have spent 1.66 billion hours playing Xbox Game Studio titles in 2020, the most ever year to date. More importantly, at least for me personally, Microsoft launched a little game called Microsoft Flight Simulator that was the top-rated PC game of this year with a Metacritic score of 92, and they're also saying that Microsoft Flight Simulator players have logged 26 million flights. I think I'm somewhere around 2 million flights of those, so there you go. I play the game quite a bit. It is a lot of fun, but more importantly, more than 1 billion miles flown, enough miles to circumnavigate the globe 40,000 times. Now, on the console side, Ori and Will of the Wisp is the highest rated Xbox game that launched this year with a Metacritic score of 90, and also Minecraft Dungeons registered over 6.9 million multiplayer sessions. So for Xbox not having any games, as the memes will tell you, they actually had a pretty big year. And this is really important because Microsoft on November 10th will be launching their next generation consoles. Now, we already know that they had a rough start, but Microsoft is ending this generation really solid. They have more studios under their belt, and once they close that $7.5 billion acquisition, they'll have even more. You know, they're not quite doubling it, but they're getting a lot more for that acquisition with some huge titles. Not to mention Microsoft has launched Game Pass, and Game Pass Ultimate have also come out, which are appearing to be huge fan favorites because it's for about $15 a month. You can get access to about 160 titles once EA Play games arrive on November 10th. The point here is that Microsoft has a lot of momentum behind them. They have a lot of studios under their belt. They have a brand new subscription service called Game Pass, and Game Pass is proving to be it's grabbing its own headlines, which is fantastic for Microsoft. Obviously, they have Xbox Live, and they have a bunch of other things that are in the works to make Xbox even better. But the point here is, as Microsoft runs up to the launch of their console, right, they obviously got outsold by Sony roughly 2-1 on the PlayStation side versus the Xbox console. Microsoft has played some serious chips that have taken a very, very long time to mature. You don't acquire studios overnight. Yes, they can do it in a couple months, but Game Pass things they just don't happen. EA Play in Game Pass just doesn't happen. These are things they've been working on for weeks, months, and years to get out to the door. And roughly around November 10th, we start to see all of that work come to fruition in this next generation console that Phil Spencer has done, I personally think, a really good job. They have the most powerful console, they have the best value console, and then they also have the Game Pass subscription as well, and that is where Microsoft is headed. They've got this value proposition with Game Pass that is very hard to match. It's very hard to match, and that's where I shouldn't say all of their effort, that's where a sizable amount of their effort is coming to make this next generation launch go much, much better than the previous generation. They're focused on the most important things, the games, and then the second most important things, the value. And that proposition right there is setting up the next generation consoles launch for a big win for Microsoft. The question is, will that happen, right? What does success look like? With 15 million Game Pass subscribers, I think Microsoft probably has numbers written down and say, you know what, by the end of next year, we want to be at 30, or pick your number. I don't know if it's 30. That's just me making that number up. And they also want to look at their potential sales ratio to the PlayStation 5. I don't honestly think that the next generation consoles, Xbox consoles, are probably going to outsell Sony just because they have a massive install base, twice that effectively of Xbox. But if they can close that gap at all, then it's going to be a win for Microsoft. But most importantly, they're looking at that Game Pass, and they're looking at how they can get more studios under their belt and more games out the door, because Microsoft has proven this year, and Mr. Greenberg is confirming that when you put out good games, I know this is crazy, people are going to play them, and they're going to play them a lot. And Microsoft is seeing a huge shift into gaming. And most importantly, what they have set themselves up is for success. There's a lot riding on the next generation console launch for Microsoft, but I think they're going to be pretty good coming out of the gate.